While serious sim racing is amazing, what happened to all the over-the-top, exaggerated racing thrills? Can't we have both serious and outlandish video games at the same time? To plug that very gap, we think that some formerly amazing franchises are ripe for a return. 7 in fact, and go on then, 1 is a simulation, which we just couldn't resist. Everything we suggest is grounded in reality, i.e. we think there's genuine demand, and we're talking about driving game franchises here. There must be more than one entry in each series. Be sure to let us know which of these you're hoping for a return the most, and also let us know if there are other racing franchises you'd like to see return, as we could feature it in a future video too. Let's start with one of the most beloved modern arcade racers, and yet also a series that has remained dormant for the best part of 15 years, Burnout. Inspired by Konami's Thrill Drive arcade series, the original Burnout was a checkpoint-based street racer that rewarded reckless driving. Near misses with traffic and drifting around corners filled up a boost meter. Once filled, you could activate a burnout, daring you to dodge traffic at crazy speeds without crashing. The fan favourite Crash mode didn't actually arrive until Burnout 2, Points of Impact, and then, for the third installment, Electronic Arts acquired the publishing rights. It emphasised ramming opponents, resulting in bombastic crashes. The visuals were a noticeable leap forward, accompanied by a licensed soundtrack featuring early 2000s pop punk. Who doesn't love that? Many fans regard Burnout 3 or the open-world Burnout Paradise as the franchise's peak, but let us know your favourite. While the latter received a remaster and a Switch port, the last all-new entry was Burnout Crash in 2011, a forgotten mobile spin-off that put the Crash mode at the forefront. EA abandoned Burnout in favour of Need for Speed, with Criterion developing Hot Pursuit, Most Wanted, and more recently, Unbound. Hot Pursuit in particular felt like EA trying to take the essence of Paradise and speed dating it with the more established franchise, but as Need for Speed moved away from the takedown style crashes, it left a Burnout-shaped hole. Meanwhile, original series creators Alex Ward and Fiona Sperry went on to form Three Fields Entertainment and create Dangerous Driving, a circuit-based spiritual successor to Burnout 3. But with a much smaller team helping the project, it lacked Burnout's production values with limited damage modelling and unpredictable car handling. Three Fields is currently working on Recreation, formerly Dangerous Driving 2, which is shaping up to be an ambitious open-world driving game, inviting comparisons to Burnout Paradise. As for the original Burnout series, EA hasn't even acknowledged its existence since Paradise Remastered. It's believed that Stellar Entertainment, creators of the remaster, is working on an unannounced AAA arcade racer in Unreal Engine 5. Last year, social media teasers alluded to crashes and takedowns. Could this be hinting at a belated Burnout sequel? Let's see. Another franchise that has a similar freneticism but in a completely different setting is Wipeout. Futuristic racers used to be a popular racing subgenre, think F-Zero and Extreme G, but they've been wiped out, pun intended, from the mainstream of late, relying on indie releases such as Pacer and Redout. In the mid-1990s, Wipeout was one of the PlayStation's defining launch titles in Europe. Created by Sony's Psygnosis studio, it was a vision of what Formula 1 could look like in the year 2052, with anti-gravity ships replacing cars, a distinct visual style helmed by the Designers Republic, and a memorable soundtrack from techno artists like the Chemical Brothers and Cold Storage. It ushered in a new era of 3D anti-gravity racers thanks to jaw-dropping graphics and an insane sense of speed. The Designers Republic would work on the first 3 Wipeout titles for the original PlayStation, before the series made its PlayStation 2 debut with Wipeout Fusion. This was followed by Wipeout HD on the PlayStation 3 and several portable spin-off titles. PlayStation Vita launch title Wipeout 2048 was a particular highlight, but marked the last new console entry. The Wipeout Omega collection on PS4 was a compilation of 2048 and the PS3 game, also marking the sad demise of its developer, Studio Liverpool. It's been over a decade since we've had a proper new installment, excluding the ephemeral Wipeout Merge mobile spin-off. The series is an important part of PlayStation history and deserves a comeback, especially considering Gran Turismo is Sony's sole remaining racing game franchise. While that's 2 outlandish racing games covered, we're not forgetting simulations either. We think there's space for a modern-day interpretation of Jeff Cramond's Grand Prix, even in today's marketplace. EA and Codemasters F1 games are entertaining enough, of course, but hardcore sim racers often have to turn to third-party Assetto Corsa PC mods or fictional formula cars in Automobilista 2, Race Room and R Factor 2 for a truly immersive experience. Not since the days of Jeff Crammond's Grand Prix series have we had a proper F1 simulator, with the English developer's final game, Grand Prix 4, arriving way back in 2002. Attention to detail sets these apart. Each car model was distinct, reflecting the varying development paths of the real-world teams. Fully manual pit stops were possible too, with the sim outputting telemetry to aid setup decisions. Crammond's first serious take on F1, 1991's Microprose Formula 1 Grand Prix, introduced wet weather to the sim racing world. By 2000, Grand Prix 3 featured drying racing lines, a feature missing from some sims even today. GP4 simulated the 2001 F1 season, and just like real life, McLarens were more likely to detonate their engines than Ferraris. A marshal would push your hobbled car off the track as well. Car setup options and tutorials had input from Mark Hemsworth, then team manager of the Arrows F1 team. Although tracks weren't laser scanned, all 17 from the championship were recreated using GPS data and were no less realistic as a result. That final entry even had the official FIA intro, the soundtrack to many an F1 fan's weekend, further enveloping players in the world of Formula 1. Crammond's F1 games moved the bar for racing sims, and the fact that GP4 is still enjoyed by a passionate community of fans and modders today is testament to that. It also shows that there's a clear demand for a sim-focused F1 title, but can anyone afford to do it? Well, that's a different matter altogether. Microsoft definitely could, reporting a whopping $27.2 billion of profit in the last quarter alone. But it won't. That's about as likely as Daft Punk doing another world tour. Still, in an age where it seems to have doubled down on Forza Horizon by jettisoning all other driving titles, we can't help but think now is the perfect time for it to invest in another racing game series, Project Gotham Racing. Strangely, it originates from Sega's last home console. The Dreamcast arrived at the turn of the century, and once people had realised that the Millennium Bug didn't actually threaten humanity, Bizarre Creations created a game called Metropolis Street Racer. A beguiling racer, the rug was pulled from beneath it when Sony's PS2 began to dominate. Thankfully, Microsoft was about to enter the console market and picked up several Sega talents to create the first Xbox. This included the Metropolis Street Racer team, who created a spiritual successor called Project Gotham Racing. It carried across the vibe of city streets and the kudos points system, dished out for exuberant driving, and reminds us that a more simplistic racing game is sadly lacking in 2025. For example, the cover car is the Ferrari F50, and your goal is to simply unlock that model. There isn't a main career mode as such, but instead disparate modes of hot lap, one-on-one, street race, and style challenge. Complete an event, unlock the next event, and a car, and so on. Hardly mold breaking, but the allure of the top car is enough to power you through. Over the next 6 years, Microsoft funded 3 further sequels, each revered in its own right, adding in circuits like the Nürburgring Nordschleife, motorcycles, online multiplayer, and dynamic weather. There were even 3 mobile spin-offs, including the wildly successful version for the Zune HD. Oh wait, sorry, we didn't mean wildly successful, but rather utter and complete failure. RIP Zune. Throughout this time, Bizarre wasn't actually owned by Microsoft, leaving a window for an acquisition by someone else, and in 2007, Activision did just that. It meant the development team was separated from the PGR franchise. It went on to make Blur, another fun racing game, this time with Mario Kart-style power-ups, and James Bond 007 Bloodstone. These failed to sell enough units to satisfy its owners, and the studio was shut down while creating a stillborn Blur sequel. However, the PGR moniker is thought to still be under the ownership of Microsoft, just ready to be redeployed at any minute. Or, just sit on and do nothing about it. A different problem that you can do something about is not being subscribed to this Traxion channel, because by clicking a button, you can subscribe, and that means you'll catch all of our latest videos in your inbox as they're released. If you enjoy watching sim racing content on YouTube or just general gaming videos, perhaps you want to have a go at creating some for yourself. This is where Elgato steps in. It has an incredible range of streaming and video production products like capture cards, webcams, microphones, cam links, green screens, anything you can think of that's going to help you with your video production and streaming, Elgato probably has a product. Just make sure you check out the affiliate link down in the description below. By doing so, you'll be able to buy those products, and also Traxion will get a little bit of assistance and support from that as well. Rally games. We can't get enough of them here at Traxion. Literally, there just aren't enough of them around at this present moment, especially in light of the recent Codemasters Rally Team closure. With new official WRC games on the way, but not until 2027, there's a noticeable gap left in the more accessible time-based virtual rally genre. Anticipated indie game Super Woden Rally Edge should fill that gap nicely, but what about a large studio making a more friendly rally title? Think EA's Shocks, the V-Rally series, or the more accessible of the Dirt entries. They all seem to have completely vanished. And that's why we think it's time for the garlanded Sega Rally series to return. Nostalgic memories of desperately trying to complete Sega Rally 2 at a British coastal town aside, we think a revival would have to move with the times a little. This is what the overlooked Sega Rally Revo, sold simply as Sega Rally in Europe just to confuse everyone, tried in the 2000s. It added fresh environments, online multiplayer, and terrain deformation to the mix. Revo is considered a mainline series entry, but isn't the same as Sega Rally 3. Again, just to be extra confusing. That was only for arcade cabinets, and took the Revo base, stripped away some of the visual tricks, and made the handling more free-flowing. And just to really muddy the waters even more, Sega Rally 3 in turn was ported to consoles as a download-only title called Sega Rally Online Arcade. But let's not get too bogged down in the confusing release strategy. This era of Sega Rally is criminally underrated thanks to an underlying sense of checkpoint-based fun. Sadly, sales numbers didn't meet expectations, and Revo's Sega Racing Studio development team was shuttered before being subsumed by Codemasters. However, there are signs that the Sonic Steward is returning to the racing fold. Later this year, it will launch Sonic Racing Crossworlds. It has confirmed a remake of Crazy Taxi, and there's even set to be an Outrun movie by Michael Bay and Sydney Sweeney. Sega Rally would fit right in. Fans have wanted Midnight Club to return since its last volume on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2009, but it arguably makes perfect sense for it to come back now. Why? Well, consider this. Midnight Club Los Angeles used the Grand Theft Auto 4 game engine to deliver a sort of GTA Light, a street racer with all the convincing hustle and bustle of a GTA city, only without the violence. The streets have pedestrians on the sidewalks and seafront promenade, all of whom jump out of the way, Crazy Taxi style, as you hurtle towards them. It may be sanitized, but that's preferable to having Day After the Rapture style empty streets, as is now normal in games like Car X Street and Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. So just imagine what kind of Midnight Club game Rockstar could make with the GTA 6 engine, keeping that living, breathing game world we've seen in its trailers. Even as a PS2 launch game, the original Midnight Club embraced the arcade sensibilities of the 90s, while adding now standard modern features like an open city to drive around. The series always kept hold of its larger-than-life approach to driving, incorporating power-up icons hovering above the road, rival racers shouting goading soundbites at you like games did in the golden days of Destruction Derby, yet by the third, still allowed you to race and mod real-world cars. That's only really possible in a teen or 12 rated game, because car manufacturers don't want us using their real models as virtual weapons. So in a world where you have to choose between sporadic driving in the adult rated GTA 6, or a neutered open world driving game as we've seen too many times in recent years, Midnight Club would occupy that elusive middle ground, feeling edgy and dangerous without ever going too far, and adding arcadey elements that just wouldn't fit in the GTA universe. There's a whole generation of gamers who grew up playing Midnight Club and Need for Speed Underground, who still long for a living city to race around at night, the streets slick with rain and the lights reflected in the tarmac. Again, imagine how good that could be in GTA 6's engine. Yep, now you're getting it. Surely Rockstar is ready for another fan-pleasing palate cleanser. Midnight Club isn't the biggest street racing dynasty under house arrest. The aforementioned Need for Speed franchise has been reinventing itself for decades in the hope of staying relevant, but after what has felt like an identity crisis, Electronic Arts has paused the series, with the Criterion development team drafted in to help with Battlefield 6. 2022's Need for Speed Unbound should be the final chapter, with EA hinting that the franchise will eventually return in new and interesting ways. That's all well and good, but attempts at new and interesting haven't necessarily proved fruitful recently. How about a different strategy? The original Need for Speed Underground launched in 2003 at the height of Too Fast Too Furious mania. Street racing was king, and Black Box Games nailed the brief with Underground, capitalising on its popularity. The dark Olympic City streets provided the perfect canvas for a thumping soundtrack, neon underglow, and souped-up imports, tearing through parks and intersections at what felt like the speed of light, only once you'd earned those upgrades though, and you were going to have to work for them. Car customization was a key element, something that would be built on for the sequel merely a year later. Underground 2 retained the atmosphere, the story-based career mode, and the car customization field progression, but this time around it moved to a new open-world Bayview location. There was no police presence in either Underground title, but so many other core Need for Speed personality traits can be traced back to here. It felt like the antithesis of the Gran Turismo franchise, the rebellious PS2 platform sibling who didn't conform. Some may argue that 2015's Need for Speed, that's it, it's just Need for Speed, nothing else, was actually a spiritual successor of sorts, but it flattered to deceive. If EA is brave, in an era where certain other street racing titles are emerging from the shadows, an actual Underground 3 could garner the sort of excitement to sell copies by the million. So that's going to wrap things up. 7 racing and driving game franchises we would love to see return. Which of these would you like to see the most? And more importantly, which other racing game franchises would you like to see return? Because we have plenty more at our disposal, and I think we could very easily make another video because there's just too many to choose from. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, leave us a like if you did, subscribe for more content like this in the future, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.